In this video, we are going to discuss about iterators in Python. So iterators are basically very important thing for computations. We do iterations in many places where by changing the values of a particular variable and we increment the variable and we'll assign it to the corresponding equation and we'll try to compute it. So how do we do it with the programming language? The programming language generally, if you want to access every element of an array, we use a for loop and we can do it. Even Python also supports that, but little conveniences are introduced in Python that only we are going to discuss here. So the first thing what we need to know is the iterables in Python. Iterable is basically an object which helps us to iterate through it, in sequence. So if you remember, we have studied this many sequences in Python. Also, we studied the basic data structures in Python. So what are like a list, tuple, string, set, dictionary, and even we discussed about the files as well. So all are basically an iterable. In a list, we can iterate through every element in sequence. Even in a tuple, we can do it. String, we can iterate through the characters, individual characters of a string. And set also it can be iterated. The dictionary can be iterated. Even files, every character can be iterated in a file. So for iterating, generally what do? We use a kind of a for loop, right? So we use a for loop for iterating the any sequences. So how do we return such for loop? If you go on, if you will be able to see that iteration is done using a for loop for any sequence. Let's say A is a sequence called a list. So having elements 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. Now the iteration can be simply done from the beginning till the end of the list by using a simple for loop for I in A. So I will be an iterable object, and when we try to access the I, we will be able to see what are the elements of the A list. So when I execute this, it will give the output log now 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, which is basically the elements of a list which is accessed sequentially by using the iterators. So how it is actually implemented, if you look into it, there are two mechanisms that we have iteration mechanisms which is having two important element. The first one is called iterator. Iterator is the first element in the iteration mechanism. So what this iterator will do, it will help us to iterate through the sequence or iterate through the iterables. Okay, and very particularly iterate through the iterable object. Iterable object. Now here I is basically an iterable object. By using the next function, we can iterate through it. Okay, so the second one is as we iterate through, the next function by using the next function, we will when we reaches to the end of the sequence, something has to be stopped. So in order to stop it, there is one specific exception is being used that's called a stop iteration exception. So when you try to access the sequence or iterable beyond the range, then it will introduce an exception called a stop iteration exception. The second mechanism what we have is called a iterable. So if you want to iterate through something, you must have an iterable. So iterable object must be produced. So the iterable objects can be produced by using the iter function. Iter function, within bracket we specify the object. Within bracket we specify the object. The object is nothing but the what iterable you want to iterate. So it could be a list or tuple, string, set, dictionary, and files. Anything it could be. Okay. So that's why I showed you earlier. So I is an iterable object here. It iterates through an object, iterate through an object called A, and every time when I is accessed, it will give access to the elements of the list A. Okay, now let's see some more thing in detail about iterator. So let us assume I have a list called alphabets alpha, and also I have a content in the list as A, B, C, and 10. So these are the contents. Now if I want to iterate through this list without the help of the for loop, in order to understand the mechanism of the for loop, we will use this. So first what we need to produce here is we need to produce a iterable object. So iterable object is produced by using the iter function by passing the iterable sequence. Then this iter function will return an iterable object that is called I. So that is loaded onto I. So this I becomes an iterable object now. Next, by using the iterator, we can access through the every element of the list. So iterator is nothing but the next function. So the next of I will produce the iterable object. It will access the first value of the iterable object. So I will be the index 0, and in 0 we will be having A. Now A will be printed on the screen. Similarly, when it goes to when you want to access the next element, again we iterate through the iterable object called I by using the function next I. So now here already we have for the line number 4 we got the output A. Now we are supposed to get output B because it's iterating to the next element. Similarly, it goes to C and 10. Now, any guess what will be the output of the line number 8 here? So the line number 8 is actually we are trying to access beyond the range, because the iteration, if you look into it, the index having a value starting from 0 to 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we have iterated 0, 1, 2, and 3 from the line number 4 to 7. Now we are trying to iterate beyond the range. So immediately what it will do, it will immediately it will throw an exception, or it will hit the exception called the exception stop iteration. So then that will help us to terminate the program normally here. So now if you look into it, so as long as the iteration is permitted, it will access every element of the list A, B, C, and 10. But when I try to go beyond the range, it throws an exception over here that is called a stop iteration exception. Stop iteration exception. So this is actually by default if it is happening when you use a for loops now, you will be able to easily see. And particularly if you want to iterate through the iterable sequences, you can do it like using the iter and next functions. And also we can have a multiple iterator for a iterable object. Multiple iterator for the iterable object. But for each iterable objects, we must have one more separate iterable objects as well. So how it goes? Now here X is a list. X is a list, and having list elements 100, A, 200, 300, and DSAP. So like that's having a list elements. Now I set an iterable object for the one list, for the single list X as A, B, C. So now for a single iterable object X, we have the iterable objects A, B, C as well. A, B, C. Now this A will be an iterable object for this iterable X, and B will be the iterable object for the iterable X. C will be the iterable object for the iterable X. Now here, when I do it for the first time with the A, it will try to get the element 100, because next will iterate through the iterable. So X is an iterable, right? X is an iterable. So first access will be given to the first index value. So that is going to be 100. The next time when I do for the A, the iterable iteration through the iterable object A, it will get the next element that is going to be A. That's going to be A. Now what I'm to do, I'm trying to iterate iterate X through an iterable object B now, through the iterable object B. So as I do this, what will happen? As this is being the first time, the iterable object will start from 0 for B. But whereas the present condition of the iterable object A is already having within access up to 1, having an access up to 1. Whereas B now only we are starting, so that will be 0 over here. Next, when you see that with the C, iterable object, again C we are starting now only. So since we are starting C now only, so it will access the first element, that is again it's going to give the value 100. Okay. And next, again what do? I iterate the X through A. Now already A have been accessed now with 0 index and 1 index, and next index will be, it is going to be 2. Next index will be 2. So when you use the A object, the next index will be 2 only. So like this, we can access the iterator using multiple iterators. So it's a very good convenience that we have it in Python. Okay. The next thing is, okay, before that, if you look at the output over here, for line number 6, we got 100. For line number 7, we got the value A as an output. And now for B, since we are starting afresh, so it will access the first element, that's 100. And C is also, we are starting afresh, so it will be C, it will be 100. And A, third time we are using, so 0, 1, 2 index will be accessed. So that will give you the value 200. Now, if I ask you for what is the value for a B, next time when I use next of B, what will be the value? It will, already we have used 0 value. So next time it will be A, because that iteration will go to the next element, that will be A. Similarly, it will go continuously. You can access till the end of the list. Okay. And also there is one important concept in iteration is called a lazy evaluation. Lazy evaluation means the computation is not done immediately. That's what it means. So whatever is required, only that will be only computation will be done only for that. For remaining thing, it will not be computed. So that is why by doing that we can save a lot of memory spaces. That's why it is introduced in Python. That's called a lazy evaluation. Now, in a lazy evaluation, now very easily it can be understood here. So let you know there is a class called a range, okay, or we can say the range function also. So the range function, it takes a parameter, either single parameter or 2 parameter or 3 parameter, it can take. It produces the range of objects. Please understand that it does not produce a range of values, whereas it produces the range of objects. So the range of iterable objects are produced, and that can be iterated through to get the values of each object. Okay. So directly we cannot use the range of 100, which will not generate a value. Rather, it will generate only the object. If you want to get an iterable object, then what we can do, we can use the iter function and passing the range of 100 as an argument, that will produce an iterable object ranging from 0 to 100. 0 to 100. Now here among this 0 to 100 values, I wanted to use only some values only. That means from the beginning 10 values only I wanted to use. So now this what the system can do, it can generate only up to some 10 values, and 11 to 100 or 11 to 99, it need not to produce because I am not making use in the program. Okay, that is why it's called as a lazy evaluation. No computation is not done for the range of values from 11 to 99, and also we are not going to make use of it. So that is not at all required here. Although you produced the range, it is not going to be used for computation. So what do I do now? So once we get the iterable objects, right? So I got the iterable objects from 0 to 100, 99 actually now, 0 to 99. So now what will happen? We can access only certain values, right? How? It depends on how far we are going to iterate. So I just wanted to iterate through at least only some 10 values, okay, or 10 values, let's say. Now the I here, it is, please understand that it is not a number. It is an object, iterable object. Iterable object in the range of 0 to 100 values. Okay. Now here this will produce the range of in values from 0 to 100 in list, but now we can iterate through it. Okay. So as we iterate through it, I just use one more for loop just for my convenience. So I know that I'm going to access only 10 elements. So I'm accessing only 0 to 9 values. So the totally 10 values I'm going to access. So I use it inside the print statement over here, and my j is going to be the iterable for this range. Okay, don't get confused, but my intention is to show the range of values accessed through the iterable object I. So I'm, since I is no, I'm ranging from 0 to 9. So what do I do? I'll let this for loop to repeat this statement for 10 times. That's a simple thing. But I'm accessing only the iterable object I. So next of I will produce, first time it will produce the 0. Next it will produce 1, 2. It goes on up to 9, and that will produce the range of values from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Please understand that iter does not produce a value. Iter, rather, it produces only the object, iterable object from the range function, whereas the next of I will iterate through the iterable object I, and that produces the range of values as the range is specified here from 0 to 9 over here. So iterators can be used as per our convenience, and can be fine tuned as per our requirement, can be used as per our application requirement, so that we can use the single iterator, or we can use the multiple iterators, or we can implement the lazy evaluations. So anything we can do which will help us to execute our task efficiently. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening.